As a raging inferno swallowed the capital of the ancient world, the man responsible supposedly stood high above the chaos, happily plucking his lyre. The apocalyptic monster we remember as Emperor Nero is largely a fiction, a collaborative invention designed by his political enemies to overwrite the actual history of his reign. The Julio-Claudian dynasty was a machine of instability, defined by a deadly cycle of assassinations and paranoia that left the empire on the brink of collapse. Nero's mother, Agrippina the Younger, navigated this environment with brutal precision, clearing a path to place her 16-year-old son on the throne. Nero's reign began as a highly controlled political project, stage-managed by his handlers to project a sense of restored order to a fracturing Rome. Agrippina's strategy relied on Seneca, the Stoic philosopher and tutor tasked with guiding the young prince. Under Seneca's influence, the early years of the regime were models of rational administration. The administration lowered property taxes, reformed the currency to stabilize the economy, and maintained a period of widespread peace across the provinces. But while the state functioned like a clock, Nero was personally drawn to the arts, chariot racing, musical performance, and the pursuit of mass popularity. He sought the adoration reserved for celebrities, while the Roman machine demanded the rigid authority of a military autocrat. That internal tension eventually turned violent. In 59 AD, Nero broke free of his handlers by ordering his mother's assassination, ending the stage-managed period of his rule. He began subverting every Roman norm. He performed in public theaters, played the lyre for crowds, and drove his own chariot in the games. The common people and the Greek East wildly adored him. To the average citizen, he was an accessible emperor who descended into the arenas and theaters to share their passions. The Senate watched with growing resentment. To the traditional Roman elite, an emperor acting as a public entertainer was a fundamental betrayal of the imperial office. In their eyes, Nero's gravest offense was social suicide, lowering himself to become an entertainer for the masses. The divide between the emperor and the elite reached a breaking point in 64 AD, when a fire broke out in the city's commercial district and raged for 6 straight days. Nero was actually 30 miles away when the blaze started. He rushed back to lead the relief efforts, opening his private gardens to the homeless and paying for the city's cleanup with his own funds. But the recovery efforts turned controversial when he claimed 300 acres of the scorched city center for the Domus Aurea, his massive golden house. The complex featured unprecedented architectural innovations, like a revolving octagonal dining room that channeled the sky through a massive central oculus. The sheer scale of the palace handed his enemies the perfect narrative that Nero had allowed Rome to burn just to clear space for his grandest project. To counter the arson rumors, Nero needed a scapegoat. He targeted a small, misunderstood sect known as the Christians. The resulting executions were horrific. Suspects were tortured in the amphitheaters and used as human torches to light the emperor's private gardens. By 68 AD, elite support had completely vanished. The Senate declared him a public enemy, and the Praetorian Guard, the emperor's own protectors, abandoned their posts. Fleeing the city, Nero took his own life at age 30. His final, theatrical words were, "What an artist dies in me." His death ended the first dynasty of the Roman Empire, but the struggle to define his character was just beginning. The senatorial historians who survived him controlled the archive. They framed his populist leanings and artistic obsessions as proof of clinical madness to justify their own political takeover. However, in the eastern provinces, his memory remained untarnished. Many refused to accept the emperor who liberated Greece and loved the arts was actually gone. This devotion spawned the Nero Redivivus myth, the belief that he had faked his suicide and fled east across the Euphrates into Parthia, where he was raising an army for a triumphant return. Nero's immense popularity with the common people created a messianic legacy that would unintentionally facilitate his ultimate vilification. Early Christians, still carrying the trauma of the garden executions, took the myth of Nero's return and predicted he would reappear as a world-ending demon. This fear was codified into the Book of Revelation, which cast Nero as the apocalyptic beast. The scripture describes a beast surviving a deadly wound, directly echoing the rumors that Nero escaped his suicide to haunt the world. Nero spent his entire reign desperately seeking the affection of the public, using imperial power to ensure he was loved and remembered as a great artist. History does remember him, but as a collaborative invention, a monster born of elite political hatred and religious trauma, forever burying the actual human being beneath the mythological villain that the Roman world needed him to be. Of legendary tactics and hidden histories, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Mythic Keep.